What's happening, goukigod here? Well, back in February, I reviewed Street Fighter V, and at the time I said it was one of the best games in the franchise, but it was also the most disappointing. This is pretty much how most people felt, and it's obviously been a contributing factor to the poor initial sales. At launch, Street Fighter V was incredibly low on features and things to do outside of online matches. The game was clearly rushed out in time for the start of the Pro Tour, and as such it only really catered for skilled players looking to play other skilled players. There was almost no options to fight against the CPU except for the incredibly basic story mode, which didn't really provide much of a challenge. It also lacked the necessary tools that new players need to learn the various systems and mechanics before they venture online for a proper thumping. Many other features, considered staples of the fighting game genre, were either promised as post-launch DLC or left out completely. In the 6 months since launch, there have been frequent updates, almost one a month, and these have added new content such as characters and modes, as well as balance changes and bug fixes. Now, in my original review, I said that I didn't think the game at launch was good value. So the question is Street Fighter V as of July 2016 worth the money? Before I give you my answer, let's go over what's new. Firstly, there's 4 new characters with at least 2 more confirmed for release later this year. That brings the roster up to 20 from the initial 16. The new characters, Alex, Guile, Ibuki and Balrog, are all well designed with unique playstyles, and they add some welcome variety. Alex and Guile were originally free for everyone up until the end of June, but will now need to be purchased using fight money. Each character will set you back 100k each, or roughly $6 depending on where you live in the world. There's also 6 new stages if you include the new night versions of existing stages, and these cost $75,000 each. The brand new stages are a mixture of new locations and some modern interpretations of classic stages such as Balrog's from Street Fighter II. While I don't have an issue with the characters costing fight money to unlock, I think the stages are a bit pricey. Stages cost almost as much as the new characters, and this seems a little stingy as the game really didn't ship with that many to begin with. I personally feel like Capcom should release these for free, or at the very least they should come with a corresponding character. For example, Balrog's stage could come with him when you purchase him, or maybe you could get a discount for buying them together. The quality of both the new characters and stages is on par with the rest of the game's generally high quality though. More or less anyway. So at least it doesn't feel like you're being nickel and dimed for cheap trinkets. In terms of purchasing items, everything can be bought from the new InGame Store, which was made available shortly after launch. Originally there was going to be 2 different in-game currencies. Fight money would be earned in-game by completing offline and online modes, and Zenny was going to be made available sometime after launch, although Capcom have now said that this system has been scrapped. You'll now be able to purchase fight money from the PSN, Xbox Live Marketplace or Steam to spend on in-game items. I think this makes the most sense, as having the 2 systems was pretty confusing, particularly because their values were different. In terms of the cost of items, I've found that if you play through the game's various modes, it is possible to earn enough fight money to buy most of the extra characters and stages, although you will need to be thorough. For example, beating the survival mode and trials for each character earns you a nice chunk of fight money. These modes can be pretty challenging though, particularly the survival and the harder settings, so players at a lower skill level may struggle to earn the same amount of fight money that an advanced player can. You'll also earn money from online wins, although at 50 credits per win it can take a long time to earn any significant cash. Now the biggest addition to the game is without a doubt the new cinematic story mode. This is the most fleshed out story we've seen in this series, and it also plays very differently to the typical arcade modes of past games. Instead of selecting a character and playing through their individual story arc, this time you'll alternate between characters as you work your way through the central story. This is supposed to address one of the game's largest issues, the lack of offline content, and while it does take a few hours to play through, most of that time will be spent watching cutscenes. That would be fine if the story and cinematics were worth watching, but unfortunately that's not the case. For starters, the story doesn't make a great deal of sense. It's not that it's complicated, actually it's completely the opposite. It's just that it jumps around so much, giving little explanation as to any of the characters' motives or reasons for being heroes or villains. The writing and voice acting is terrible, and the story itself is unoriginal and boring. I know that this is a fighting game and it's supposed to be corny, and while I wasn't expecting something that would rival the works of Tolkien, I was hoping for something at least mildly entertaining. I don't think this story needed a cinematic expansion, and after playing through the campaign of a game like Injustice, Street Fighter V's story just doesn't satisfy on any level.
I think Ken shouldn't have to come with us. He has a family. He should stay here and protect them.
Basically, it's 3 hours of my life I'm never getting back. On top of that, the fights are again only a single round and really don't present any kind of challenge. The cinematics before each fight also don't give you much information as to who you'll be fighting as, so it's really hard to root for anyone when you're not even sure who you are. I think they should have just stuck with a more traditional arcade mode that lets you fight a selection of random characters in a best of 3 round matches. Arcade mode has always been a great way to try out new characters and hone your skills in a variety of matchups. I get that Capcom were trying something different, but I don't think that it should have been at the cost of one of the series' most beloved modes. Basically, if you're hoping this would be more like a traditional arcade mode, then you're going to be very disappointed. What is good to see is the esports scene that's grown up around the game. If the game's main focus was to establish a healthy competitive community, then at least in this department it succeeded. There have been record numbers of people signing up for tournaments such as EVO, and the matches at these tournaments have been pretty entertaining to watch. ESPN will even be broadcasting EVO live this year, so hopefully this exposure will help promote the game and bring in new players. It is a bit strange that the Pro Tour hasn't been integrated into the game in any way. I think there's a huge opportunity to expand awareness of the pro scene. It could even be as simple as being able to view the Capcom Cup leaderboards or find out dates of upcoming tournaments. Finally, from a connection and stability standpoint, I've experienced very few issues with my time online, and while it's not perfect, it's a big improvement over Street Fighter 4. Capcom have said that they are working on improving it still and addressing persisting issues such as rage quitters, so hopefully they continue with this support of the game long term. I would really like to see them show their fans more appreciation in the future though. The game has had quite a rocky start, and while it has improved since launch, there's still a ways to go. So in answer to whether I think it's worth the money now, I still have my doubts. I still believe it's one of the best entries in the series when you look at it purely for the fighting. If you can get it at a discount and are looking to play predominantly online, then I say go for it. If you are hoping for a more traditional experience though, or you want lots to do offline, then I don't think this is the fighting game for you. This is particularly true for anyone new to Street Fighter, as it's still pretty unforgiving for new players, and the learning curve when jumping online will be very steep for anyone who hasn't mastered the fundamentals and core mechanics. Anyway, if you've been playing the game since launch, let me know how you feel about it. Capcom have said that the July update is going to be the turning point, and in the future there's going to be more content for people who want to play offline and to help those new players. I really hope so, because I really love Street Fighter, but at the moment I just can't recommend this game to new players. Anyway, that's all I've got for you in this video. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm out.